Whenever you're ready.
Hello everyone, Coach T here with you. Welcome to the end of our third of 4 weeks in our M4G challenge. I am excited to bring to you guys the nutrition seminar portion of the 4, and just excited to answer some questions and hopefully navigate everybody through just the topic of nutrition from kind of a broad perspective. So anyway, my lovely wife Becky is behind the camera and she will be directing us with questions today so I don't get too long-winded, and that way she can keep us kind of on point here. So I will let her get started with the first question.
Tell us, Coach T, a little bit about your background in nutrition.
Yeah, so my background in nutrition, it all really started when I went into the military. My sister was kind of prepping me to be as successful as I could be going into basic training. And so naturally with training also comes eating correctly. So I really started to kind of practice these habits then. Little did I know, a lot of my habits were not healthy actually. I didn't really figure that out until about a year or two later when I actually started CrossFit. So cool thing is I started my big boy job for the Department of Revenue the same day of my first class in CrossFit. And from there, for the next year, I was just very intrigued with CrossFit in general. A lot of the ways of being healthy, performance, nutrition. And then you tie that in with my job that I really didn't like, sitting at 3 computers every day. And I didn't have much to do. So really some days I would spend 2 to 6 hours just researching nutrition topics. And really I stumbled upon a man by the name of Charles Poliquin. He had coached many Olympians at that point in time and just had a breadth of knowledge when it came to nutrition. And so I kind of started there, and from there I still went on to other people that I do really hold in high regard, and I still look at a lot of their things today. And so that's really where it kind of got kicked off. And so spending a whole year, almost 5 days a week, just studying nutrition topics, that's really where I was able to not only gain a lot of knowledge, but then also live it out. So every week I would try something new, or I would go apply something that I read or researched, and then kind of was like, okay, this doesn't work for me, this does work for me, and kind of apply it that way. So that's really where I got started with nutrition. Yeah.
Excellent. We are going to start with the basics. So for those out there just wanting to know, what do I need to know the basic foundations around nutrition? What would that information be? What would you want to share with them?
Yeah, I think as 11 years have gone by, the first thing that I would always talk to people about is understanding that, are you first of all getting enough protein for your body? I know that is kind of a controversial topic amongst different communities in the world, but for the most part, it's starting with protein, the right amount. And then the second thing I would actually say is your ingredients list, which I'm sure Becky will probably get into somehow, some way, so I won't go too crazy into that, but it's really the quality. What I'm trying to say is the quality of your food over the quantity of your food. So those would be the 2 major basic things that I would say is I would sit down with anybody, talk about, hey, do you know what kind of protein you're eating, how much you're actually getting in, and then also starting to really go over ingredient labels with people, kind of the hidden ingredients that are really doing a lot of harm, perhaps, to your body, your sleep, your recovery, those kinds of things. So those would be the 2 basics that I would start with. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about ingredients, what are the top ingredients you look for that you try to avoid?
Man, it's actually a pretty long list. I'll try to keep it short. Number 1 is bad oils, or oils really in general. There's only a few good ones out there: avocado oil, coconut oil, olive oil. Those are generally the 3 that I would eat. But any kind of vegetable oil, hydrogenated oil, I would stay far away from. So safflower, sunflower, vegetable oil itself, canola oil, more man-made oils. They're highly processed, and they can do a lot of harm to both our gut lining, our metabolism, lots of other things. The other things is hidden sugars. So I think everyone understands that sugar in certain amounts is not good for you, but it's the hidden sugar. So really all sugar is something that's stripped away, so the sweetener of any type of food. And today you'll see it in the form of corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, but the most popular ones now that people don't realize is any kind of something syrup. So for example, a really popular one in almost anything is brown rice syrup. All that is sugar. It's just they're calling it something different. You'll get tapioca syrup, things like that. So if it says tapioca starch, brown rice starch, those things are fine because it's the complex carbohydrate of the food. Whereas if it's the syrup, it's simply the sugar that's sweetening it to make it yummy. But that's what's gonna spike your blood sugar, process things as fat, and all those things. So those are really, really quick ones. There's a lot more, but I'll just start with these. So, yeah.
Many folks in CrossFit have heard the word macros. What are macros and why should we care about those versus just the calories we're eating?
Sure. So really quickly, just a few seconds, micronutrients, right? Those are our vitamins and minerals, also extremely important. I do think they're overlooked a lot. But for most people, the macros is important because it's actually the caloric intake that the person is taking. So I think Becky said calories in, calories out. Quickly talking about that, I would say get some type of tracker that's actually telling you how many calories you're burning on average. So what I mean is instead of, a lot of people don't like to count macros because every day our body changes what we're actually burning. What I would encourage you to do is at least get a week template. So for example, I use a Whoop. Okay, so I would go in and I would say, what is my average daily burn over these 7 days or these 30 days? And that is where I would start with my macros, okay? So if I wanna maintain, I want to get exactly the amount of calories that I'm burning on average per day. So if I'm burning 3,000 calories, I wanna eat 3,000 calories. From there, we can't do it on this seminar because all of you are so different. But basically that's when we would break down out of 3,000 calories, how much protein should this person have, how much fat, how much carbs, those kinds of things. But if we want to be in a slight restriction phase, so this is where, you know, just calling it what it is, for people, and men do generally have a little bit less body fat just because of the way that they're made, as opposed to women, they have to have a certain amount of fat for the body, for their hormones, estrogen levels, those kinds of things. For the most part, people who are 20 to 25% or higher, I would encourage all of you to be in some type of restrictive state, so we really can bring off excess body fat. But once people get into kind of that 10 to 20%, there is an argument to be made based on how much muscle you actually have. We should probably be more in a maintenance phase and just working more on the quality of our foods. And then there are those of us who are 10% or less, or for women, I would say even 15% or less, where really the goal is to actually put on as much muscle as possible. We don't have that much fat to really take away. And this is where you really should be in a surplus all the time. You should be in a surplus until you actually reach a certain amount of body fat, kind of the opposite there. So for a lot of people, it's easy to say, but like surplus would be only about 500 calories is necessary to generally keep muscle on and or build it. And then 500 calories lower, I would say up to 4 to 6 weeks of this, you could probably still gain some muscle or maintain it while only stripping away fat. But I will say for the people who restrict too often for too long, you generally can't actually lose muscle while losing fat, and that's generally not what people want to do. So for them, I would do more of some type of a cycle. So 4 to 6 weeks of a restrictive state, and then maybe a week of maintenance, maybe even a week of surplus, and then going back to that. That way you can keep giving your body what it needs. Because the other thing about being in a restrictive state, calories in, calories out, is if you're not getting the appropriate vitamins and minerals, you're not getting enough fat, your hormones can really change, not for the better. So those.
Excellent. To clarify 2 points, the 3 macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbs.
Yep, protein, fat, and carbs. So really quickly there, carbs and fat, just from a density state, it's only 4 calories per gram, and then fat is 9 calories per gram. So those are your 3 king macros, and then micronutrients are obviously different things. So
And then just also I want to clarify, because I think we jumped in quickly, the percentages that you were sharing are body fat percentages.
Body fat percentages.
Yes,
yep.
Excellent.
Yep.
We've already talked a little bit about what foods to avoid. Many of our folks know desserts, pop, sugar. You gave us some things on labels. Anything else you want to add to that list?
I said bad oils and things hidden as sugar. The other ones is I would just kind of go back to the macronutrients. I would just understand, for example, generally quality is the most important, but the more that you can blend quality and quantity, that's where you're really going to get what you want. So as opposed to ingredients, I would just really encourage people out there, instead of coming to a professional and saying, yeah, but which one's better? The more you can apply both and get to that middle, you're gonna get what you want out of the process. I think any time someone looks at something and they're like, wow, this is so difficult, let me do the easy route. You're already gonna go down a route that you're not gonna like the outcome. Anytime you do something that's the easy route, generally in life, it's not going to give you the outcome that you're really looking for. So for me, I do want people to understand that myself, Becky, we still do eat some foods that we really do enjoy, and that we would be honest and say, hey, this isn't always the healthiest choice. But I do think that for most people, I know 80-20 rule is a very popular phrase. It's been popular for years. It's not really one I agree with. I am more along the lines of 90-10, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And the reason for that is because most people don't understand what 80-20 means. 80-20 is truly 80% of your caloric intake is clean, healthy foods. 20% is not. How most people read that is 80% of the time. So if you look at 5 days out of 7, that's 83%. Most people think if I eat Monday through Friday well, I can eat bad on Saturday and Sunday. Studies show that people who do that, 50% of their calories are actually consumed Monday through Friday, and the other 50% of their calories are consumed in 2 days. And it's of bad food. So what you're actually eating is 50-50. You're not eating 80-20. And then the other, again, not an argument, but just something to be aware of, is I hear a lot of people say, yeah, but I don't like to track my macros. Although you don't have to track your macros. I don't track my macros probably 6 to 8 months out of the year, but it's also because I've been doing this a long time and I kind of understand what I'm eating. It's fine if you don't want to track your macros, but then you can't possibly convince me or anyone that you're actually eating 80-20 because you don't know. Even me, I wouldn't know if I was actually eating 80% clean, 20% dirty or fun. So that's what I would actually want people to do, more so than the ingredients in your foods. So
during any New Year challenge, there's always someone who tries a new diet or a new regimen. What if, and I know we don't like the word diet, but what diet or nutrition plans have you tried, and what has worked well or what hasn't worked?
I will try to go in order so I don't forget one. So the first diet that we did, or I did, I guess Becky did not do it with me. When I first started CrossFit, I had 3 amazing guys who had been doing it for years. They looked incredible. They were all 10 years older than me, dads with kids, and I was blown away. So of course I was like, what works? And they're like, paleo. So paleo, that's what I did. A little bit more restrictive than whole foods, but I did paleo first. Then about a year later, it was very popular in the CrossFit community, but it was the zone diet where you ate in blocks. I'm not going to break that down, but what I did like about that is, again, it was, what caught my eye was the phrase was, feed your muscle, not your fat. And that's kind of harsh. What it's saying is actually go get, for example, an in-body, find out what your lean muscle mass is, and that's what you should be feeding to maintain, not your overall body weight. Because if you do have excess weight, right, you're actually going to be eating way more food than you really need, as opposed to just eating enough food to maintain your muscle mass. So I went from paleo to zone. Then I went really to whole foods, which I did for the longest. Changed it up a little bit, and then I've been doing that now for 5+ years. But then when I had my back surgery 5 years ago, I had 3 months where I was very sedentary. All I could do was walk, couldn't lift, couldn't exercise, couldn't do much. And so I looked into a lot of different things, and I thought, hey, with this time, I might as well try some things that I've been interested in. And at the time, I was very interested in trying intermittent fasting as well as keto. Everything I've ever done, when done correctly and when aligned with the right goals, all of them have worked. And I would literally tell anyone to do them to some degree. The only one that I could argue is intermittent fasting, both on what I've seen, what I've researched for women only. I would not recommend that a lot. I would recommend it from time to time. Men, I have found intermittent fasting works incredibly well, but women, sometimes it is some mixed results. And then the last one, which again, I don't even consider it a diet. I just keep the foods that I consume mostly or all to whole foods. So not Whole30. I've never actually really done Whole30, just whole foods. I stick to those rules. Kind of going back to Becky's last question, sorry, I'm just kind of thinking things through, is again, instead of ingredients, specific ingredients, I would tell anyone that if you have excess fat to lose, start eating everything that you consume. So like if you eat one individual thing, it should have 5 or less ingredients in it. Anything that has over 5 ingredients, just make the rule for now, you can't consume it. So it needs to have 5 or less ingredients in it. And until you start to actually see that weight melt away, keep to that rule. So if you're eating an apple, as long as it's an apple, great, 1 ingredient, okay? But if we all of a sudden get to something that we think is simple, like a piece of meat, and it should just say chicken, but now it has 6 or 7 ingredients to that chicken, we know that it's highly processed, things have been added to it, and more than likely, without even reading it, we know that the ingredients in it are not healthy. So marinades and stuff like that can have a lot of bad ingredients and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Perfect segue to what does Tristan eat in a day? And if you don't mind, let's also incorporate the meal timing. So any timing recommendations you have?
Yeah. I don't know if I can really answer the timing just because really everyone's different, from working out in the morning to working out late at night. So I'll just try to be I will get into what I eat, but my rule, because I have worked out at every single time of the day over the last 12 years, my rule is always 2 hours before and 2 hours after your workout, your number one goal should be carbohydrates. That's primary. So meaning, I guess the word bulk, the bulk of your carbohydrates for the day really should be consumed in these 2 time periods. So again, 2 hours prior, 2 hours post. I would say moderate to low consideration on protein, and then low to sometimes none for fat. The further we get away from those 2 hours, so 4 hours out, fat has to now become a pretty high priority for ourselves, as well as protein. And then again, I would say the first meal in front of your pre-workout meal still needs to have carbohydrates. If you were to have 2 meals before that, carbohydrates are probably less important. And then kind of the other way around too. Post-workout, carbohydrates are very important. The next meal, carbohydrates, kind of a medium importance. And then if you were to eat again, so this would probably be a morning workout person, the further we get to the day, we probably don't need to focus so much on carbohydrates. Now, with that said, let's say you're a person who fasts in the morning. So you get up super, super early. Kind of the opposite of what I just said. Your first meal before your workout is actually going to be when? It's going to be before you go to bed. So your dinner does actually need to be somewhat important carbohydrates. That way your body can actually consume, process, and have them in storage for your workout in the morning, if you're a person who likes to go into a morning workout fasted. So that's kind of the importance of timing. And again, there are a lot of rules. I don't want anyone to think that that's the way I eat 24/7 all the time and that everyone should do that. It is a case-by-case basis, but that would probably be general rule of thumb. What I eat, goodness. I basically kind of have some of my top 3 things that I like in certain categories. And I did just come off of going to Wadapalooza, which I will say was very extreme for me. In fact, I would say I almost ate 100% clean. I think I counted with Becky 3 full days over 9 weeks where I let myself have something, not even a day of things, but just something. So I'll kind of just go through that because quite frankly, outside of that, I don't change it up much. I add a few other things, but for the most part, all of my carbohydrates were 420 grams of carbs of white rice. I would either have 1 gluten-free bagel or 2 to 3 gluten-free pieces of toast, which would be about 60 grams of carbs. Every night I would make myself spaghetti. It's a gluten-free noodle that only has brown rice flour and millet flour. And this would be another 100. And then I would do 1 banana, a handful of berries, some starch supplements just to get in more carbs in my workouts. And then I think a few nights I randomly would have like honey added to maybe a banana or literally just like a shot of honey to help myself sleep. So those were my carbs. My proteins would always be whole eggs, also with egg whites, chicken bacon, bone broth, collagen, whey protein before, after, during workouts, just to get faster protein into my body. But tons and tons and tons of chicken and ground beef, 96%. And then on rest days or lower days, just to get in other pieces of protein, I do kind of have this sirloin filet. It's expensive, so I only eat it once or twice a week. But then I also have some smoked salmon, and I generally eat that once or twice a week. In competition prep, I do not have dairy, but the other 6 to 8 months out of the year, I watch how much I eat, but I would still have Greek yogurt. I would have Fairlife whole milk. And then if I go out, I would still add cheese or something like that to my meals. What does that leave? Fats, coconut oil, some nuts, not a lot of nuts. It's just hard when you're training that much for the body to process things like that. But I would do some nut butters. A lot of my meat and eggs and all that would also have fat in it. And then one that I love, and I'm out of it or else I would have shown you, is Primal Kitchen fell in love with the Chipotle mayo. So anytime I really did have to get more fat in, I would just double dose on coconut oil or Chipotle mayo. It really flavors up my meals quite a bit. So that's generally what I eat in a day. Other small things that aren't caloric but really helped me is, again, I'm out. I have them shipped right now, but I always start my day off with Element salt electrolyte packets. And then the first hour after waking, I would always do several cups of coffee. And then about 30 minutes after that, I would start with my collagen and or bone broth. And then I would finally have my first meal of the day. So never fully intermittent fasting. You really can't when you're trying to get ready for a goal like that. You got to put on as much good weight and muscle as possible, especially for someone like me. I lose weight very quickly, both fat and muscle. So I just have to be very careful and eat enough food for that. So, yeah.
For those individuals in this challenge who say, okay, Tristan, I know what I'm not supposed to eat. I know what I'm supposed to eat. How did you actually do it and make it a part of your lifestyle?
Oh, how did I like
eliminate bad things? Yep.
Okay, this one's actually really easy if you just commit to it. All it takes is an hour or a day. In fact, I'm just going to say this. The number one way that I'm successful, the way that I've been able to do this for almost 12 years now, is you just don't bring it into the house. So anything and everything that you're hearing me say, whether it's certain ingredients, you literally should get up, you should go check all your stuff, and even if it's not everything all at once, slowly start getting rid of the things, or once you're done with them, don't buy them again. But the number one way I've been successful, legitimately, is just never letting it come into the house. Unless you are someone who works downtown or your job always makes you go out to eat. I think I did read something the other day that the average American eats out 3 to 4 times a week, which is way too many in my opinion. But let's just say that is what you do. So 4 meals a week, let's say that's out of 21. That right there would be 20%. So 20% of your meals are spent out to eat, which means if the other 80% is literally spent inside the home and you can't have any of those ingredients, I would argue you could have what you want when you go out to eat. So those are just some things that I think work really, really well. And then the second one, and it's hard. I've actually, when I used to do this full time, meet with people, this really was one of my hardest things, especially with men, is your spouse has to be supportive. So my wife and I are extremely independent when it comes to what we buy, making our own meals. I don't cook for her, she doesn't cook for me. We really do a good job of taking turns, whether it's me breakfast, her dinner for our son. But I mean, we spend time together as a family eating, but as of right now, this time in our lives with a 3-year-old, we don't put a big emphasis on like, oh, we're all eating the same things. So I think we eat 4 things the same. Correct me if I'm wrong. 5. Eggs, egg whites, chicken bacon, rice, and ground beef. Is that it?
I think so.
I think that's it.
Potatoes?
That include, I don't even eat potatoes right now. But yes, that would be another one. But my point is like Becky and I, we do have some staples and it does help. So like she actually really helps me out a lot with rice until I found these things. She used to do all of her meal prepping on Sundays. She would make all the rice for us. So really appreciated that. A lot of times if I would cook ground beef, sometimes I would cook some extra. But for the most part, I mean, we are independent. But the main thing is less about what we're eating in front of each other necessarily. And it's more about supporting what the other person needs. So there have been times in 12 years where there are some like healthier desserts or something that I've found. And so I'll buy them and I'll be like, cool, I'll have this on the weekends. And maybe for Becky, it's a huge trigger. It's just understanding that like, okay, if this is a trigger for her, I have to really hide this, or, you know, I need to really not eat this very often. And that's what's really, really helped too. So those are the 2. 1, don't let it into your house. 2, you do need a supportive spouse if you're in a relationship with someone. If they like to eat out 7 times a week, you're gonna need to change that. They're gonna need to go out to eat by themselves or with friends or stuff like that, so.
We've got just a little bit of time left.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned meal prepping. What are some of your tips? Why would you meal prep, and what are some tips for meal prepping?
Yeah, why would you meal prep? Well, time. It's just more efficient. You know, our lives have changed so much over the last 5 years between running a business and then having a 3-year-old. And although we are very blessed in many, many ways, I would say that there are 2 days a week for me just right now, and that's changed over 5 years too. But there are 2 days a week for me where I have no time from when I wake up to even when my head hits the pillow. And if I'm not meal prepped for those 2 days, ironically for me, I don't have the choice to go out and get bad food. I just won't eat. And so we just talked about, like, depending on what your goals are, you know, I would lose too much weight. I would feel weak. I wouldn't be able to perform the way that I want to perform. But yeah, just being able to, 1, already have the food ready. You can get so many other things done for those of you who are busy. And then for those of you who maybe have cravings or temptations, by already having the food cooked and you've already worked so hard on it, there's no reason to go waste your time or waste your money doing that. And sorry, that is the last one. It's just, you save a lot of money by meal prepping. Becky even goes through a meal service, which clearly in a way you would think, oh, that's got to be more expensive. But really the truth is by staying consistent with it and by not going out and getting the $20, $30, $40 meals randomly, because we don't do that as often, she really does save money. I buy 2 premium meats. I only eat them twice a week, but it's because I feel like if I can have that premium thing even here in my home, I don't need to go out and get a $60 steak. I can pay $10 a pound for that steak here and have it and enjoy it just as much and save money that way. So anyway, those are things that quickly I think help a lot. Was there another part of that question?
No, that's great.
Cool.
Okay, last 2 questions. Mm-hmm. If someone wanted to track their food, how would they go about finding their macros?
Yeah, if you want to go find your macros, are you talking about how do I know how much I'm supposed to eat? Or okay.
Like targets.
Yeah, there are a lot of apps out there, and for the most part, it's all science. So instead of that, because you can find them anywhere, you could Google it, bodybuilding.com. You'll get tons, and they're all pretty accurate. What I would say is a great rule of thumb, so instead of doing an app or an equation, it's really simple. And this goes for everybody within a 20% scale. Start by minimum eating 80%, and this is grams, of your body weight up to 100%. So I'll use myself as the example. I'm 200 pounds. So if I'm new to this thing and I know I haven't been eating well or I've never tracked, I would start with 160 grams of protein. And over the course of 2 to 4 weeks, I would gradually build up to 200 grams of protein. That would be 80% to 100% of my 200-pound body. For fat, a lot of people undereat this, and I know that these numbers kind of sound scary, but I would say just the opposite. So I would say start at 40% of your body weight. So for me, that's 80 grams of fat, and then you should go or move up towards 50% of your body weight. So I would start at 80. I would start to build myself up to 100 grams of fat for my 200-pound body weight. And then carbs, it's the most interchangeable. It's all based on goals, in my opinion. That's all carbs are. Carbs are goals. If you're a walker and that's all you do, you don't need carbs in your life. You only need a few. And really, they're only the ones that give you vitamins and minerals, like fruits and vegetables. But for us, for most of us watching this, we are very active people. Even if you are a person who comes to 1 class a day, that's all you do, from 3 to 5 times a week. I would say that you need to be eating more carbs than you probably think you do, all the way to the person who's working out 6 times a week, has an active job, doing 2 sessions, all that stuff. So for me, I got up to 3.5 times my body weight. So I weigh 200 pounds. At the peak of my training for Wadapalooza, I was eating 700 grams of carbs. That is not what most people should eat. That's not what anyone should even start at. I would say for most people, if you are serious about performance, you need to be getting up towards 200% of your body weight or more. But I would highly encourage everyone that really the place you should start is 150%. So if carbs scare you and you know that you've been in a really restrictive carb state for a long time, please do not go jump up. The water weight that will bring on, the retention, you will see the scale skyrocket. You'll freak out. You'll be like, this isn't happening. This doesn't work. You might not feel great the first week. So what I would say is, again, 150%. So for me, that would be very mild. That's 300 grams of carbs to my 200-pound body. And then working up to at least 400 grams. For me, I've been doing this a long time, so that's not where I am. Most of the year, I'm in a maintenance phase between 400 and 500 grams of carbs. So obviously getting up to 700 over the span of 9 weeks wasn't that crazy. I just had to be patient and add carbs a little bit over those 9 weeks. So,
all right, we're getting ready to close it out. Any final things up here you haven't talked about you want to just share, give a shout out to for people to try, and then close us out? Any final challenge for our participants?
Okay, you might have to ask that second question again. First one, I'm just going to go through my 3 favorite carbs that really are healthy, especially for people who want to work out, and don't be like afraid that they're going to make you gain a bunch of weight. Again, the cleaner the carbohydrate, it's not going to make you gain excess weight as long as you're not adding all those extra ingredients. So these were the 3 that kind of got me through. By the way, I'm not sponsored by any of these. I get no money for this. These 2 I get at Costco. So Babigo, cooked sticky white rice. Don't know if you can see that. This saved my life just because of how efficient, but it is very delicious. Rice, you literally just peel this back a quarter, put it in for 90 seconds, and out comes this beautiful, delicious, steamy white rice. I grew up a fat kid, overweight kid, and I love Italian food, specifically spaghetti. And so for about 10 years, I've never had spaghetti because I was always afraid it was gonna make me fat. And when I found this from Kirsty Aramo O'Connell, a games athlete, and she said it had no gluten in it, no excess oils or sugars, it only has 2 ingredients. I had to go give it a try. She did not disappoint. I have had this 5 to 6 times a week for dinner since August, way before we even went to Italy. So this has really worked for me. I do 8 ounces of lean ground beef, segue, Primal Kitchen marinara. They have several different flavors, and I throw in about 80 to 100 grams of carbs with this, and then eat some steamed vegetables and a handful of blueberries, and this has been my dinner for a long time. My other favorite, especially when I'm in very quick order, I don't have a lot of time, this gluten-free bagel. I can only find them in the McCordsville Meijer now. They used to be in all the Meijers. Now it's only the McCordsville Meijers, so sometimes I go up there once a month and I just like overstock. But the Greater Need is the brand. It is made with extra virgin olive oil and gluten-free flours, so really like that. Dig it, not very many sugars. My proteins, I didn't put them out because obviously you should know, if you're not eating eggs, you're a loser or you're allergic to them. So eat more eggs, especially whole ones. I'm a big fan of egg whites, but don't completely sub out an egg for egg whites. Eat your egg, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. Add egg whites for more protein, blah, blah, blah. But chicken bacon, so this is something that Becky found years ago. I think we've been doing this for 6 years now, something crazy like that. Al fresco, uncured chicken bacon. It even has a hint of smoked flavor to it. All it is chicken and water. It's delicious. It kind of tastes like bacon too, but it's amazing. 5 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat. Incredible. And then very expensive. You can find other ones, but this one tastes great. I try to only buy it when it's 80% off or 20% off, 25% off. But Kettle and Fire, I got hooked on this when I was trying keto and intermittent fasting. It's a great way to kind of start my morning instead of doing a big meal, get that protein in. And then my other one, which is just cheat codes. Like these are cheat codes to being healthy. This is where a lot of people outside of pop and snacky foods, this is where a lot of people screw up their nutrition, is by getting some kind of condiment that has corn syrup, bad oils, all the bad stuff in it. So I have 3 brands. One, Siete, amazing story. Hispanic family, the grandma was gluten intolerant. And if you know anything about Spanish culture, that's what they eat. And so she had to figure out a way how to not be able to consume gluten, but still kind of eat her heritage type food. So I love Siete. They have all the cool things, all the way from tortillas and chips and taco shells to amazing condiments. So green enchilada sauce is my fave. Put it on all of my eggs, omelets, vegetables. Primal Kitchen, so these are my 2 faves right now. They have tons of other stuff too, an Alfredo sauce and stuff, but these 2 I use almost every single day. At night, Primal Kitchen tomato basil, a wonderful marinara sauce with olive oil as the base. And then this has been my favorite for 3 weeks now, buffalo sauce with avocado oil. I put it on a lot of my chicken, vegetables, rice, spices it up if you like something hot. And then I actually did this for my mother-in-law several years ago. She can't have garlic and onions and all this other stuff. And I think it's actually pronounced foodie, but F-O-D-Y. I find it at Meijer. It has basically gluten-free, keto-friendly, but it has no garlic or onion in any of their products for people who are sensitive to those things. But they have a taco sauce that you would not even know the difference. I love it so much. So anyway, these are my 3 brands, kind of my 3 carbs and 3 proteins that probably a lot of people don't know about, or it's right under your nose and now you can just go look for it. What was the last question?
Just final comments, close us out. Any challenge for our folks?
Challenge. I would kind of go back to what I said at the beginning. I would really look at just what you have in your house right now. And again, it's not like a full cleanse. I do believe that some people are capable of just cold turkeying things and staying with that for forever, but that's not most people. So I do think by just eliminating one thing at a time, very important. But yeah, when you go to the store now, understanding that sometimes $1 less or $1 more, whatever, in a product is not always worth the buy. I really encourage you to turn the label around, start looking at those things. Again, staying away from sugar, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, bad oils. Personally, I'm not a gluten fan, whether you're gluten intolerant or not. So just looking at different things that might substitute that, I think would be a really good idea. almost to you, Becky, can you think of anything challenge-wise?
It doesn't happen overnight.
It does not happen overnight. Yeah, I will say that. I did this for 30 days, went all in, incredible results. And then I crashed for almost 60 days until I had to figure out, like, okay, I have to give myself a little bit of grace. I have to do this a little bit slower. And now I would say for the last 2 years, it's amazing because I never thought that this would be easy. And I never thought that I'd be able to continue with this. I always had this thing in the back of my mind that's like, you know, you can't do this for the rest of your life. And I think as long as you're able to enjoy life a little bit, but understand that, I think the phrase is every day the rent's due. That's really what your body is. Every day you got to pay your rent because we only get one body. And understanding that every day you do have to get up and you do have to make healthy decisions for yourself. I really think that is the big challenge, is making healthy decisions every day, not just some of the time. So, you know, I really hope that helps, guys. Congratulations to all of you who have made it this far in the 3 weeks. I really hope this last week brings it home for you. I think we have Ash and Nicole who will go live in person for our last seminar on mental health. So again, just hopefully these first 3 weeks have been a help to you. And if you guys have any questions, please really do come see me and ask me anything. Even if we have to set up a one-on-one and a meeting, I'd be more than happy to do that with you and just kind of get you set on the right foot. So have a good rest of the challenge, and we'll see you in the gym.